Should we just one more minute and then we kick off? I think we can probably start now. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the second online webinar of Walk to School Week 2021. My name is Laura, and I'm a Green Schools Travel Officer. And here with me today, there's Kira, Rachel, and Katrina, also from Green Schools Travel. And then there's Claire, our guest speaker. She's also from Green School. She's a very well-known face, so you might have seen her before, you might know her. Just thanks, Claire, obviously, for being here with us today and giving the talk. Just before leaving the word to Claire, a few words on Walk to School Week. You probably all know about Walk to School Week by now. Walk to School Week is an annual event organized by the travel team of Green Schools, where we basically encourage schools, so students, teachers, but also parents, to pledge to walk as many times as possible, especially during that week and especially on the way to and from school, but also to choose whatever other sustainable transport mode other than, for instance, taking the car. And during this week, we also want to highlight all of the many benefits connected to the action of walking, the benefits that reflect on us, but also on our planet. This year, we asked a few speakers to come along and talk about different aspects connected to the action of walking. So yesterday we had our first talk with John O'Dwyer, who was the chairman of the Irish Pilgrim Route. So you can see that on our website. There should be the link for the YouTube recording now. If you missed it, that was very interesting. And today we have Claire telling us everything about her experience climbing Kilimanjaro. So we are very excited about it. We are looking forward to hearing her. So I'm leaving it up to you, Claire. You're muted there.
Oh, thanks, Laura. I'm just going to share my screen now.
As we said before, obviously, if you have any question for Claire during her talk, just put it into the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll address them towards the end.
Okay, everyone see that okay?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. Perfect. So hi, everybody. You might recognize me from Green Schools when I'm not working on your applications and assessments. You'll usually find me out walking. I love walking. I walk every day. You know, you don't need a skill set. Anyone can do it. It really just calms the mind and has such a positive effect on both your physical and mental well-being. I'm really honoured to have been asked to speak today. And it was such a privilege that I was able to climb and summit Mount Kilimanjaro. It was about 3 summers ago in July 2017. So it's great to be able to share that experience with you today. And I'll take you on a virtual tour so we can all hopefully have a look at what it's like to summit. I suppose my first proper hike wasn't actually till I graduated and I had spent some time in New Zealand. And my first proper hike was, you might recall from Lord of the Rings, Mount Doom. It's Mount Tangaruri in New Zealand. It was about an 8-hour hike and we were using crampons, and it was quite a scary experience for my first time, but I absolutely loved it. And it was about 2,000 meters. And it was just that empowering feeling and sense of accomplishment that makes you feel that you can achieve anything. And just the breathtaking views, that connection to nature and the environment, that when I came back then, it just instilled that passion into me. And then a couple of years later, I did started kind of with the Camino, and I just felt the benefits intensify when you're several days walking in a row. And as John was mentioned yesterday, just that simplicity of life, just putting one foot in front of the other, noticing nature, focusing on the present, and going on that journey of self-discovery, where you're just really disengaging with all technology and the daily routine. And I suppose what's magical about Kilimanjaro is there was nowhere to plug in anything, no electricity, and no showers. It was complete camping and living on the mountain for the 7 days. So it was a complete digital detox, and it was kind of like walking, I suppose, from the equator to the North Pole in 7 days, just with that variety of landscapes and biodiversity that we see. So it's just something that I like to do when I can now, to just really, unplug and recharge myself. And another positive is, I suppose, the friendships that you form, and you meet like-minded people when you're in the hills, and that teamwork and camaraderie as well that comes with it. So I signed up, it was like April in 2017, and the training, I suppose, was just very much focused on endurance. So trying to get out multiple days walking and multiple days on the hills running, and trying to increase your water intake, because I'll talk about, how important it is to increase your water just when you're walking at altitude, and then eating healthy to boost your immune system. So it doesn't require any extra skill sets or technical expertise. Anybody can climb Kilimanjaro. So before I start, I just want to do a quick true or false questions in your classroom. If you can think about each of these statements, and maybe if the teacher wants to type into the chat, go ahead. So the first statement is Kilimanjaro is the highest freestanding mountain in the world. True or false? So what do we mean by freestanding? It just means that it's a standalone mountain, so it's not part of any mountain range. Most of the, Himalayan mountains, or a lot of the 7 summits, there will be all kind of part of several mountain ranges. So that's what makes Kilimanjaro unique. So that one is true. Well done, anyone who got that right. Next one then is Kilimanjaro is one of the world's 7 highest summits. So there's 7 highest summits in the world, the highest for each of the continents. Again, that one is true. Starting off with a few easy ones there. Well done on that one. And then how many people do you think climb it every year? So true or false? 100,000 people? I'll give you a minute to think about that one. It is about 25,000, and that's significantly increased over the last few years, over the last decade or so. It was quite minimal before that. What about this one, do you think? Considering it took 7 days, do you think the fastest ascent and descent was 6 hours and 42 minutes? True or false? That one was true, actually. I don't know how. I must have ran up and ran down it. That one is actually true. It's a recorded amount. So you are likely to meet a buffalo on the mountain. True or false? A bit of a trick one, this one. I suppose technically you could, but it's a false, because you might find some on the kind of Kenyan border in the quiet areas, but generally we never saw any of the large mammals, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. You can see a glacier from the top. True or false? This one is true, and I'll show you some footage of that later, the Heim Glacier from the top, which just makes it so magnificent that you're so near the equator and you're walking along the ridge, and then all of a sudden you see this spectacular glacier in front of you. 80% of walkers reach the top, and this bit of a variable one, because it'll depend on a number of factors and what route is taken and how long they take to get up. Did you think it's 80%? I think it's actually a false. It's slightly lower than this, but probably on the route I took, which I'll talk about in a minute, probably is about 80%, but overall it's about probably 60% maybe. And then this next, the last one, the oldest person to summit was 89 years of age. True or false? this one was true. And I suppose what I love about Kilimanjaro is that anybody can do it. It's open to everyone. So I think it ranges from the youngest to summit was about 7 to 89. So you get all spectrums of life climbing the mountain. And there's, just as I said, no skill set. All you have to do is walk. So there's been some interesting stories over the years. There was somebody in 2015 who actually walked backwards up the summit. Why you would walk backwards, I don't know. But they did. Sanjay Pandit in December 2015 did that. We've had people hang glide off the top, play cricket matches, and then there was a man called Bernard Gousson who actually scaled it twice in a wheelchair as well, which is pretty amazing. I think we met someone going up as well who was doing it on one leg as well. And then a few months before we were doing it, there was actually a team carrying a washing machine up it as well, which was really interesting. So a 25 kilo washing machine. It was a water-free teacher, and he was raising money for mental health charity, just as a symbol for the hidden load that we often carry every day with us, and to bring awareness on, sharing that load when we need help. So that's really what the trip's all about. It's helping your fellow walkers on the trip and just getting each other to the top, putting one foot in front of the other. This I actually took on the plane flying in from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, straight air flight into Kilimanjaro Airport. And it just kind of shows the scale and enormity of it. So it's 5,896 meters. It can be quite hard to kind of visualize just how high that is. So if we think about our mountains in Ireland, anyone know what the highest mountain in Ireland is? Put it into the chat there if you know. And yeah, it's Carrauntoohil, which is under 1,000 meters. So if you think about it, there's probably 6 times that. So 6 Carrauntoohils, or if you're in the west, if you think of Croagh-Patrick, it's about 764 meters. So about 8 Croagh-Patricks or 6 Carrauntoohils, or if you're in the Dublin area, the highest would be Lugnaquilla. So about 6 Lugnaquillas as well. So that's how high it is. So these are the 7 summits. So it's the highest mountain in each of the continents. So anyone know what the highest mountain in the world is? Want to shout out to your teacher there and put it into the chat? That's correct. It is Mount Everest. And then following Everest then is Aconcagua in South America, Denali in North America, Kilimanjaro, and then the highest in Europe is Elbrus in Russia. And then we have Vincent Massif and Kosciuszko in Australia as well. So Kilimanjaro lies 330 kilometers just south of the equator, and it was first summited in 1889 by German explorer Hans Meyer. And just to give us some context as well of where it stands in the 7 summits, you can see here just how high it is. And it's actually the easiest of the 7 summits, which is why it's very popular, because it's not a technical climb, and you do gain height very quickly, and it is very steep in places, but it is just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and walking. It's a huge crater known as Kibo, 2 kilometers wide. And I think about 500 people in the world have achieved all of these 7 summits. Incredible. So where is Kilimanjaro? Any ideas? It's in East Africa. It's in Tanzania. So it's on the Kenyan border here. And if we go to a town called Arusha, and then it's just about an hour drive there into the Kilimanjaro National Park. So Kilimanjaro is actually not the name of the mountain itself. It's Ururu, and then Kibo is the volcano. So Kilimanjaro is actually the name for the national park, which is 1,688 square kilometers. So huge, huge national park. In 1921, it was just a forest reserve, and then it only became a national park in 1973. And it wasn't until 1987 that it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So these are the 7 different pathways up to the mountain that people take. Again, your risk of summiting and acclimatizing depends on which route you take. There are 3 volcanoes that you'll see as well that make up Kilimanjaro, with Shira and Mawenzi, which are both extinct volcanoes, and then Kibu, which is what we climb. And it's actually a dormant volcano. So I think it erupted about 200 years ago, but the last major eruption was 360,000 years ago. And there's advantages and disadvantages of each of the different routes that you can take up. I think the quickest route here is the Moranga route. And another advantage of that one, it would be you actually sleep in huts for this one. But your chance of summiting, I think, reduces to about 40% because you're not giving yourself, the body, its time to adapt to the decreased oxygen levels. And you're also missing out on a lot of the spectacular scenery too. So we chose the Mishami route here. It's the most scenic, a little bit steeper and more challenging in places than some of the longer Western routes. But it also starts at a much lower elevation. So it gives your body time to adjust. This is the Mishami route. You come in at the Mishami gate and you're gaining about 1,000 meters each day. You've got like beautiful lush rainforest and heather the first couple of days before we move up into the moorlands, more volcanic zones, Barranca camps, Karanga camps. And then we start fueling up then for our overnight summit there. The guides and porters have to be hired, and you have to sign a declaration on your entry and departure that prevents overcrowding on the mountain. So about 40% of climbers use this route, and it's around 62 kilometers in total. So if you think about that, it's probably say Dublin to Arklow or the airport up to Dundalk. So it's a mixture of long and short days, but on an average of 7 hours walking a day. I'm just going to play this video to give you kind of an aerial view of the trip. So we start off in the town of Arusha, which is kind of the regional capital, population of about 2 million people. The Maasai is the main tribal group there. And then we travel for about an hour up to Mishami Gate. And it can take a couple of hours there to sign all documents and get ready for the walk. And then the first night we're staying at Mishami camp, we move up to Shira camp. And then this one, we go exceptionally high this day because we'll talk about it in a minute, but where you climb high and then you sleep low to let your body adjust to walking at higher altitudes. And then this quite a scary wall that I was a bit terrified to do, but it's actually a lot easier than it looks. And after we cross that, over to Karanga camp, and then up to what we call, I suppose, base camp, Barafu camp. So this is our final resting place before summit night, which is about 6 to 7 hours here in the dark up to Stella Point, which is a bit of a false summit. You get to here and you think you've got to the top, but you've actually another hour to cross the ridge to get to Uru Peak. So it's about 15 hours in total walking on that last stretch. And then you have your final descent down through rainforest. We stop off for best night's sleep at Millennium Camp before departing down at Mwenka Gate. And back down through beautiful rainforest again. That's just a quick overview of it. What makes Kilimanjaro so incredible is all the different climatic zones that you walk through. So it can be tropical up to about 25 degrees Celsius at the start. You're in your shorts and your t-shirts. And then at summit night, it drops to about -20, sometimes -30. And almost every kind of ecological system is found on the mountains. We've cultivated land, crops, grassland, a lot of coffee and banana crops are the most common. Wheat yields as well. And then we move up into the rainforest, more kind of dense vegetation, a lot of frequent rainfall. And here you'll see a lot of like blue monkeys and Alabus monkeys, a few pictures of them in there. And then we move up towards heat and the moorland and then more alpine desert. and more of kind of an Arctic ice summit then as well. So it's just really, really spectacularly beautiful. The water resources decrease and temperatures drop as you're moving up and as your elevation increases. So the wildlife in each zone then also diminishes, and you start to see less plants and animals as you approach the peak. Altogether, though, there's 154 mammal species. It's really diverse. You do have some rare sightings of elephants, giraffes, and buffaloes, but more on the kind of quieter Kenyan side where you don't get any people, so it'd be very rare to see anything like that. There are 7 primates and hundreds of birds. And on the first day, and when you're going through the rainforest, the bird song is absolutely beautiful. You'll also see ravens higher up as well. There's baboons and mice and some bush babies that we saw as well. And then this flower here is kind of the semi-official emblem of Kilimanjaro. So it's the Impatiens Kilimanjaro, it's called. It's also known as the elephant's trunk flower for obvious reasons. It's really beautiful, some flowers as well on the first few days. So we start with shrublands, thick with African wildlife, and then move into lush forests, followed by kind of flowering alpine tundra. It just makes it, really, really unique. So what gear do we need then for 7 days on the mountains? Was very simple and limited. We're going to be camping. You have a duffel bag here, and it's limited to 15 kilos because everything's going to have to be carried on the 7 days. So you're trying to pack as light as possible. So you have your sleeping bag, and you need a sleeping bag that'll keep you warm. It gets really, really warm during the day, but it gets really cold at night. So you're talking about maybe minus 15 at night time. So you need a comfort level rating sleeping bag of like minus 15, and a thermarest. Sleep is really important, so it's nice to have a little mat to sleep on as well. And then your essentials are like your boots, and then you also want a pair of like runners or comfy shoes to try on at night after you've been walking all day. And then just lots of layers, because anyone who's spent time on a mountain, the weather can change so quickly. So you just have to be prepared for all eventualities there. So we did bring rain gear because you can get a lot of rain in the rainforest as well. And then the sun is so strong when you're at altitude that you have to be really prepared for that too. A lot of sun cream and hats and your sunglasses. Your sunglasses would need to kind of wrap all the way around as well. Make sure you're not going to get any damage there too. And then your walking poles are play a huge role as well, especially when you on summit too. It just takes a lot of the pressure off when you're walking long distances. And then your day pack is about a 30-litre rucksack, and then some dry bags as well. And then water wise, what I love about Tanzania and Kilimanjaro is that it's illegal to carry any single-use plastic bottles. So no plastic bottles are allowed on the mountain. So you bring 3 litres ideally to drink a day to kind of combat, the altitudes and make sure that you're keeping hydrated. So you'd have your water bladder, which is, you might see it down here, that carries about 2 litres of water, which is really handy. You don't have to be reaching for the water. It's just kind of, there's a little sippy part, which I'll show you in later on, but you just keep sipping away at it every day. And then your Nalgene bottle comes in very handy. It's just, your own reusable water bottle. And what I did at night time when it got really cold is when we had boiling water, I'd bring it into the camp with me as a hot water bottle. And then because it was boiled, I could drink it then the next day. So it was those little comforts at night time. And sleeping bag liner and just loads of layers. And that's it again, just kind of trying to keep it as simple as possible. This is a summary of the camping at night. Absolutely spectacular views there. And we had a mess tent here where we were eating in the evening times. We're having our breakfast. You'll see the larger tent there on the bottom right. The tents are similar to those that are used for like Everest to withstand kind of harsh conditions. They're 4 seasons, really good for wind. They don't keep you warm, but they don't let rain in. And the mess tent, then you go in for cooking, eating. Food is incredible. Just when you're full and you think you can't eat anymore, the porters come out and bring out more food. They're constantly encouraging to fuel you up because you use up more calories at altitude. And typical food would be like porridge, and we'd sort of eggs, beans, rice, non-perishable foods. And then we'd have toilets when we're at camp. So I see one here, this green pop-up one here. And I suppose it's just kind of like your Portaloo. So if you've ever been in Portaloo, it's a bit like that, exactly like at home. It had a little pump to flush, and but outside of the camp there was no toilets. But yeah, brought along your nappy bag, and you took any waste with you. So there's a strict leave no trace policy on the mountain as well. And then on days where we're best with good weather, we would have our tables and chairs set up outside as well. So your typical day on the mountain was just so simple, with no logistics. All you had to do was put one foot in front of the other. We'd get up at around 7 a.m., packed up our sleeping bags and our gear, have our breakfast about 8, and then we'd be starting walking about 9 o'clock. But each of the campsites were just so picturesque. And again, just that simplicity John was talking about yesterday about the pilgrim walks, just, focusing on the moment and the present and just putting one foot in front of the other. Another huge highlight of the walk was the porters on the trip. Their massive role in getting you to summit to the top. They would just do anything for you. They help carry your gear, they share their knowledge and passion for the mountains, a lot of the local knowledge. And then each morning we do a warm-up. So we'd sing songs and we dance out of camp. And on days where you're struggling and finding it really hard to put that one foot in front of the other, they'd sing along with you and sing all the way up and make you laugh. They were just really, really infectious. So there was a head guide and then you'd local guides. And like all together was a team of about 45 of them with us. The porters they're also called Sherpas for those going to Everest. And it's important when you're going that you're with a company that supports supporters. So the Kilimanjaro Porter Assistance Programme, because there's no official law to protect workers' rights there. So this ensures that there's no exploitation and that the porters are well looked after. They get the fair salary and, tips are divided equally, and they get their meals and adequate sleeping. So I'll just play a sample of one of the songs that we used to sing. Good morning. Kilimanjaro, 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 mlima mrefu sana. Na mawenzi, mlima mrefu sana. Na mawenzi, mlima mrefu sana. Ewe nyoka, Mola walizunguka. Ewe nyoka, Mola walizunguka, wataka kunila. Wanaume, jambo bwana, habari gani? Mzuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa Kilimanjaro, hakuna matata, Tamachambe, hakuna matata, Nashira mlilala, hakuna matata, Rava mlipita, hakuna matata, Baranko mkalala, hakuna matata, Karanga mlilala, hakuna matata, Barafu mlifika, hakuna matata, Uhuru mletoboa, hakuna matata, Karudi na Mweka, hakuna matata, Mboneka mtatoa, hakuna matata, na watu watafurahi, hakuna matata, mifuko itajaa, hakuna matata, baadaye ndio mjini, hakuna matata. Jambo bwana, habari gani? Mzuri sana, wageni wakaribishwa
Kilimanjaro, Hakuna Matata.
So they were just always putting a smile on our faces. You might have recognized actually some of the words they were using there. One that might jump out, Hakuna Matata, means no worries. Might recognize that from the Lion King. And one word that we learned from day one was pole pole. So they were always saying pole pole to us, which means slowly, slowly, because it's really, really important that the slower you walk, the greater the chance of you getting to the summit. And I'll explain why a little bit later on. And then Jambo means hello. Mambo is what's up. Carabo is you're welcome. Sawi is okay. So this is a few words of Swahili. The name Kilimanjaro, a lot of mystery over where the word came from, but they say that Kilimana is hill or little mountain, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, but then Najara is wide or shining. And just going to play a short virtual walk up the summit and just give you an overview of the terrain over the few days and the different types of landscapes. Okay, so that was a quick summary of the landscape over the 7 days. Quite emotional when I see that video. So yeah, I suppose to start off from day one of walking through rainforest, we're at maybe 1,500 meters. So we're already higher than any mountain in Ireland. Cairn is 1,038 meters. So we're slightly higher than that even from the get-go. After we register with the park and meet the porters, it's not long till we hit the rainforest. It can be a bit muddy in parts, so there's about 6 foot of rain a year. So kind of subject to whatever nature throws at you here, and layering is key, because you can start off with t-shirts and shorts. And then we have about 7 hours to our first camp. So it's typical jungle terrain, sprawling ecosystems, abundant with plant and animal life. Kind of a lot of fuchsia, clovers, trees. You hear a lot of bird songs. You get a lot of colourful, like turquoise, hornbills, cuckoos, and you might see some kingfishers as well. And just to give you a kind of quick glimpse of what it looks like, this is kind of the terrain that you're walking through. Really green and lush for the first day or two. You see a lot of kind of conifers as well, evergreens. Then we get like giant heather trees that become common as we go up. You get some fruit trees as well. You can kind of hear more than you can see at this level. So very, abundant birds you get as well. Some like mouse birds, flycatchers, bulbuls, patches of kind of shrubs, tree branches that are full of ferns and mosses, orchards, just a lot of kind of moss-like plants. And then we're rewarded with then some stunning views as we go up above the clouds, get a look at the kind of western reach, stunning glaciers. This area is kind of characterized by the giant heath plants, small wildflowers, and then the heavy mists can often creep in and cover the area. You might not see a lot on this day. It's kind of a big transition between your tall canopy layer to a lot lower vegetation. And then it gets really interesting as we go across kind of towards Lava Tower, huge rocky outcrop. This day we climb really high to about 4,600 meters, and then we jump back down about 600 to 700 meters to our next camp, which is key to a successful summit because it allows your body to recover. You do feel more breathless at this point. We're above the clouds. A lot of kind of lava boulders, really, really beautiful landscape here, more shrub-like thistles. The abundance of birds reduces. You might see some mice or some possible raptor sightings. There's been some buzzards, some kind of hawk eagles, rare vultures, and what's really, really popular is these white-necked ravens as well at this level. I thought we had to climb over this, but luckily we didn't. We just walked around this. And it was just a note on it's not really about, I suppose, fitness, but it is about the altitude. And when you're walking at altitude, it can just affect anybody at any time. And it's the reason that people may not reach the top. It's really unpredictable. So you could go up one year and not be affected. And then the next year you could kind of be quite sick with it. So to stop it from happening by climbing high, and you'll see here, when we go up to Lava Tower, there's quite a steep climb that day, and then we drop back down. So you'll see there's a lot of up and down across the days, and that's all helps you and get your body kind of conditioned to the higher altitudes. And it as well is, I suppose, it just reminds us how adaptable and resilient we are, because it does take time, but the important rule is that we're gaining height slowly, and there's a few things that we can do to ensure that our body adapts. So one is by keeping well hydrated. And I mentioned during the training how a lot of my training was trying to up my water intake, because they recommend that you drink about 3 to 5 liters of water a day at altitude, which is a lot. So it's really important to kind of keep well hydrated there. So AMS is acute mountain sickness, and it's brought on by lower oxygen levels at higher altitudes. So it can make you a bit breathless, you lose your appetite, headache, disorientation, you might not sleep very well, and just feel like kind of nauseous and dizzy. But treatment is just to go back down. So as soon as you drop, you start feeling much better. So it's about half the amount of oxygen at the top of the mountain than there is when we start off. So if you can imagine what that feels like, and it's very hard to describe to someone what it's like, but everything just feels like an effort. Every few steps you have to stop and take a breath. It's a bit like if you were breathing through a straw. It's just very hard to take that breath. And then at this stage, our body has adjusted. We've climbed high, slept low, which is a mountaineering concept to adjust to that altitude. So we're now above the clouds, and the landscape is spectacular. We've a lot of kind of that shrub-like thistle again. And these are giant brown cells on the left there, which is very unique to the area. So we've lots of gorse as well. And these on the bottom right there, that's a giant lobella. It's really amazing to see how like plant life are so resilient and adapt to the changing temperatures as well. So what these do is these close their leaves at night to adapt to the cold, and they retain that water. And a lot of the grasses here as well are protecting the soil from the elements and acting as like a parasol and harboring that moisture. So it's really, really interesting to see, how both our bodies and how we adapt, but also how the plant life adapts to it as well. And it's just a really nice kind of life lesson that you take away as well, just of how resilient we are. This was the big scary wall I showed at the start that actually it's not as bad as it looks. That was my face when I realized I had to climb up over that the following day. But it's actually a lot of fun, and the porters really, help you across it. It's about a 1,000-foot wall. So you're using kind of both hands and feet. It's probably the most challenging part of the walk. But when you reach the top, you're rewarded with phenomenal views over the mountain and the Heim Glacier and surrounding landscapes. So you just really feel it on top of the world and on top of the clouds at this point. And then we enter the kind of Karanga Valley. It's a U-shaped valley. So you have a lot of short ascents and descents, and you cross several streams. So we set up camp then around Karanga. And then you can see a lot of life around the river. It just aids in the weathering and erosion process. So we start, I suppose, this was our camp there. You can kind of see it there, just above the clouds. It was just really beautiful to be able to look down. And then we moved on towards Barafa camp. So your landscape here becomes barren, free of vegetation. It's almost like a lunar landscape. Feels like you're walking on Mars. It's very inhospitable. So you'll see a lot of kind of moss balls and lichens and tussock kind of grass. Very spectacular. And then we get in early enough to camp because the summit day is the following day. So we're at about 4,500 meters at this point. And you'll see here just how poly we walk. So really, really slowly as we're kind of traversing the valley there. So again, like you just all about kind of walking slowly. So you don't have to be have a huge level of fitness. It's more about endurance training and being able to walk for several days. This kind of goes toward the, more of an alpine region. So it's quite harsh, dry, windy region. We're just bare rock and ice, and the air starts to feel very thin, a lot of lichens and mosses. And I just give you an idea. It's a bit like watching a trail of torches up in front of you when we start our final night. So there's about 6 to 7 hours of walking in darkness, which is probably the toughest part because you can't see the spectacular landscape that's been getting you through it so far. You're not really having the chats because it's very steep at this point, so it is kind of single file, and you have to kind of watch your feet and watch the placing in front of you. So it's about 6 to 7 hours of that in extreme cold conditions. We've got into camp that afternoon about 3 o'clock, and then we have a quick rest and a bite to eat, and then we start off at about midnight. And then the point is to get up to Stella Point for sunrise. So we see a spectacular sunrise from the mountain, and then get to top then. So it's about a 15-hour trek. So this is kind of a view of Stella Point when we get up here. What makes it really worthwhile then is when you turn back, you see this view of Moenzi volcano, which is spectacular. The only thing is when you get to Stella Point, you climb this really, really steep area here and you see the summit and you think this is the summit, but it's a false summit and you've actually got another few hours to walk onwards up there. And it starts kind of with warm up here. You have to be really careful of radiation here from the sun and protect yourself. So I remember when we were starting off some at night, I think we were about minus 15. So we were wearing all our thermals and down jackets and covered from head to toe. And we had put in, insulated our water bladders with socks and duct tape. And I remember spilling a little bit of water at one point and it just turned to ice within a few minutes. Like it was just really, really cold that night. And another thing we learned as well was your battery depletes. So anything that you charge, your phones and your cameras can be quite difficult at this stage too. It gets really affected by that cold. And sadly as well, chocolate and jellies as well had all frozen too. So then when we were past Stella Point, then this is what was keeping me going. I just really wanted to see the glaciers. It's really beautiful that you're so near the equator and you've climbed this mountain and you've gone through so many different terrains, and then you get to this point and you see the glacier in front of you. So it's about only about 4 inches of water a year at this level, usually in the form of snow. So the glaciers cover about 1/3 of the mountain. And they're disappearing at such a rapid rate. It's predicted to be free of ice in the next 20 years. It's really scary. So 82% of the glacier has shrunk since 1912. And this is attributed to climate change and also deforestation at the base as well. So the local government has 4.8 million indigenous trees have been planted around the base of the mountain to help protect soil erosion and protect water sources as a mitigation strategy. But it's very sad to see the glaciers deplete at such an alarming rate. And then we get to the summit and a little shot of what the landscape is like there as well. So oxygen is about half the level of sea level, and there's little to protect you from the sun here. So again, be very careful. There's no surface water. Few plants survive. With a few steps that you take, you really just have to kind of catch your breath. It's quite windy as well, and just real sense of overwhelm mixed with exhaustion. It just make you very emotional, but it's just so spectacular being at the top. Urharu is the name of the peak, not Kilimanjaro. So it's the words, the Swahili for freedom. And it's only advised that you spend about 5 to 10 minutes at the top. Otherwise, altitude sickness the risk increases. So the porters want to get you down as quick as possible. So we didn't spend too long hanging around at the top. Very few plants as well, as you can see in the landscape there. So the one thing we often forget to think about is you're so focused on getting to the top, but you don't think about the descent then. So you can descend actually in a day, and we spent a day and a half to get down, but I think you can go down as quickly as in a couple of hours. And we basically, this is a shot we took on the day. We basically felt like skied down, because you just start to feel better as soon as you go down. So it's like you're surfing down the shale. It's great fun. And as you go down, you start to just feel a lot better. You start to feel warmer. And it just gives you such a new appreciation for the air we breathe as well. It's just an incredible feeling. So we're 2 to 4 hours back to Kosovo camp. We have lunch, we take a rest, refuel up, and then an hour. Then we go towards Millennium Camp. We have the best sleep of our lives that night, and then it's a 6-hour jungle trek back to Moenka Gate. And again, just spectacular jungle trek. And then again, for the last of it, we drop to 3,800 meters with say a sad goodbye to the porters, and we have a sing and a dance. Without them, I don't think we would have made it. And their words of encouragement and how they make you laugh, and they would just do anything for you. So then we're back at the end of the and I was just going to finish off with this quote from Edmund Hillary, who was the first to summit Everest in 1953. So I suppose why, we've been learning all this week about the benefits to our health and our well-being, how it increases our fitness and improves our muscle strength, reduces risk of heart disease. But it's also just so much fun, and like walking over mountains on uneven surfaces, jumping over rocks, walls, rivers. It's a lot of fun, but it's the connection with nature, the simplicity of life, that slower pace of life, and just that disengagement with technology. So no phones, no technology for the week was just incredible. When you're miles from the road, that vastness of nature as well, when you're surrounded by such an epic mountain, just reminds you of how small you are and puts life into perspective. And you can just transfer the confidence you feel of summiting to anything that you do in life. So the bigger the goal, the smaller the steps you take to fulfill your dreams. And you're just creating that physical distance from your daily life that enables you to kind of get lost in your own thoughts and discover more about who you are. That kind of journey John mentioned yesterday of like self-discovery, and what kind of just quietens the mind, so it allows kind of your soul to speak, and it instills that mindfulness where you're just present in the moment and you're aware of how your body feels, and you become a lot more conscious of your breath, especially when you're walking at altitude. So lately we've been trying to do more kind of mindfulness walks by, leaving the phone at home and trying to connect to nature more in your environment, and you just always feel better. You'll never regret a walk. And I suppose it's the teamwork and camaraderie and meeting like-minded people on these walks as well. When you're walking towards that destination as well, just going back to the mindfulness and watching where you step, like your mind just doesn't wander, and it just focuses on the present moment. And I suppose it converts just everyday life. We have climb mountains every day. At home and in school, we face tough climbs. We have to make that decision whether we're going to keep going or do we go back down. We find the physical strength and determination to climb to the top, but it's that inner work that we do in ourselves to find that inner strength and resilience, to believe in ourselves and not give in to that self-doubt that sometimes is that feeling of fear and overwhelm that conquers us and stops us from achieving our goals. But the mountains teach us that we just take it one step at a time and that we can achieve anything. So I suppose, it's not just the mountains, but we also conquer ourselves when we're out walking. So I was conscious of the time there, so I'm just going to stop sharing, sorry, so that I can take any questions.
Thank you so much, Claire. That's amazing. I think, I personally very inspired by that. I have one question from YouTube. Do you have to set up your own tent after a long day of walking? Which would seem extraordinarily cruel, but...
No, the porters, amazing. They already do that for us. So yeah.
How many porters are there?
There's a team of 45.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. There's some questions there in the chat. Sorry. Are you planning any more big walks?
Last Saturday was my first big walk in the mountains in I'd say 6 months due to current situations, and we walked the 35 kilometers, and I loved it so much. So we're trying to do more walks around Ireland at the moment, but of course I would love to go further afield, and always looking for a new adventure to walk to.
So M. Mulcahy is asking, was this your favorite adventure so far?
I think it was very, very challenging, and it was very mentally challenging. I suppose I also did the following year a Salcantay trail on Machu Picchu, and that was it's absolutely stunning, but at a little less altitude. I think I've experienced altitude walking, but I would be happier at a bit of a lower elevation.
That's okay. That's fair enough. Rachel wants to know, did you walk through the clouds while you were walking up the mountain? Did you have that? Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And what's your favorite place in Ireland to go walking?
Oh, tough one. I love, like, I spent a lot of time in the Wicklow Mountains, and I love that, the heart-shaped lake, Tonglagee. That's one of my favorite hikes. And I love Kerry, and I love Donegal, and I love the West. We're just so many beautiful mountains in Ireland.
You're an equal opportunity walker, Claire. And then just thanks from Ninon Mora, who said Vite Cove Simu. So I think that everyone really enjoyed that. I don't have any other questions right now, and I know that everyone's probably keen to either go for breaks or lunch or get back to class. Laura, I'll let you close up.
Yeah, no, Claire, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you again. I think you inspired us all, especially after this year and a half. You know, the more I hear about going out for big walks and seeing different environments, and the more I'm, you know, I really want to go now. I think I might start planning a hike or a walk. Anyway, thanks so much for doing that for us, and we hope you all enjoyed. We have another talk tomorrow, still at 11, and another one on Friday. So have a look on the website if you haven't registered yet. And we hope you're all enjoying Walk to School Week. Today is National Wow Day, so go out for a nice walk and take pictures and tag us on social media. And remember, we have nice prizes for the people who engage the most on social media. So yeah, do that. And we close it here. It's almost 12. Thanks so much for joining us, and happy Wow Day, everyone.